to reappear and for Sara Dotson to come out. Do you remember which wall you were sitting against while you were waiting or standing? Were you standing or sitting?
I don't recall.
And do you remember which wall you were against?
No.
Do you remember whether you were, whether I was next to you?
I believe you were for part of the time that we were waiting.
Okay. And was I also, was anybody else next to you besides myself?
We were moving around. All of us were moving around some. I spent some time next to you talking to you.
When I moved around...
I believe that I spent some time next to Leslie Tolbeson talking to her.
Yes. Okay, you said we moved around. Did I notice a number of other people waiting in the hallway?
Yes.
Did I inform you that I didn't know who they were?
Yes, you asked me who they were.
And when you told me who they were, did I take their photographs?
Yes, you did.
In the public hallway?
Yes.
Or public area?
Yes.
Did I ask them for permission to take their photograph?
You did not.
Did they act like they weren't comfortable with me taking their photograph?
Some of them seemed uncomfortable. Some of them seemed uncomfortable but attempting to ignore you. And some of them, Chair Blanchard in particular, struck a pose.
Did any of them speak to me directly?
I don't recall.
Do you recall any of them communicating anything to me about, explicitly about photographing them or making any statements to me?
No, I don't recall that.
Okay. And you don't remember me stating anything to them?
No, I don't recall you saying anything directly to them, except maybe to ask them to confirm their names, but I'm not sure about that.
Did I ask Oliver Doss if he would be willing to give me his phone number so I could contact him?
If you did, I did not hear that.
Okay. At some point, I finished taking photographs and asking you to identify the people that I was taking pictures of. Did I tell you that that was so I could remember who they were and use these photographs for future reference?
Yes.
Because I didn't recognize any of them.
Before.
Never. Okay. So we resumed waiting for your daughter to emerge from the doorway that she disappeared through with Sara Dotson.
Yes.
And then Sara Dotson eventually emerged with Christina.
Yes.
And Christina departed the area.
Immediately, yes.
Along with her friends.
Yes.
The Blanchards.
Yes.
April and Oliver Doss.
Yes.
And the two young men you mentioned,
Yes.
their names were?
Jacob Coulter and I don't know the other boy's name.
But you recognize them as friends of hers from school?
Yes.
Okay. At that point, did Sara Dotson approach you?
She stood in the, I believe she stood in the doorway and motioned and called to me.
Uh-huh.
And I approached the doorway with you. You came along with me. To be with me, to hear what was being said, to help me remember what was said.
Okay, so she remained in or near the doorway.
I believe so, yes.
And I got up when you got up.
Yes.
We both stood up. And now I'm going to ask you about what occurred next and the conversation as best you can recall it and our physical positions proximate to one another in the doorway.
Okay.
And what happened in the next minute or two. Okay.
Okay.
So you just said Christina emerged from the doorway
Mm-hmm.
with Sara Dotson.
Yes.
She left the area immediately
Yes.
with her friends
Mm-hmm.
and was not in the area to have observed anything that happened after that.
Correct. They were gone.
Sara Dotson stood in or near the doorway and invited you by motioning you to follow her.
Mm-hmm.
And I got up to come with you
Yes.
because I was accommodating you.
Yes.
And I'd explained to you the importance of being able to remember
Yes.
what was going on. You earlier described it as almost a lecture,
Yes.
that I expressed concern for your safety
Mm-hmm.
and your ability to remember.
Mm-hmm.
You were representing yourself in this matter?
Yep.
Pro se.
Yep.
You knew that you were at a distinct disadvantage,
Yeah.
especially if you couldn't remember what had occurred during the proceedings
Right.
or what somebody involved with the proceedings said to you,
Right.
an official,
Mm-hmm.
a public official.
Mm-hmm.
As I got up with you and we walked towards the door, did it appear to you that Sara Dotson put herself in my path to prevent me from entering through the doorway with you?
Yes, that was the impression I got.
So I did not put myself in her path. Was she going anywhere? Was she moving?
And no, she was guarding. her
So I was approaching the doorway with you. You were
Mhm.
immediately next to me?
Yes.
Okay. We
Next
approached
to
the
and
doorway
in front of.
and Sara Dotson moved in front of me
Yes.
in an apparent attempt to prevent me from proceeding any further.
Yes.
Did she succeed?
Yeah. You
Okay.
stopped.
At this point where she stopped me, was I still in the hallway?
I wouldn't term it a hallway.
The public area.
area of the lobby. Yeah.
Okay. Not in her office.
No.
Not beyond where the door where it said restricted to authorized
Right.
persons.
No, you've never entered the doorway.
Never crossed the threshold.
Uh-uh.
Didn't block the door with my foot.
No.
Didn't hold or force the door open with my hand or arm.
No, the door was fully open. but
Okay.
been
And Sara Dotson had placed her body between me and that doorway to block me from going through it.
Yes. That is to say, she was within the doorway. But yeah, you were outside.
But she succeeded in preventing me from crossing that threshold.
Yes. Well.
We began to speak to each other.
Uh-huh.
I was talking to her,
Yes.
or attempting to.
Mm.
She was
Yeah.
talking to me.
Yes.
So we talked with each other.
Yes.
Did Sara Dotson tell me that she wanted to speak with you alone?
Yes, she did.
Did I attempt to explain to Sara Dotson that you needed accommodation?
Yes.
Did I attempt to explain to Sara Dotson why you needed accommodation?
Yes, you did.
Did I have difficulty in attempting to explain this to Sara Dotson?
Yes. She interrupted
Did she interrupt me repeatedly?
repeatedly.
Did she get loud about interrupting me?
Yes. She attempted to drown you out.
Did I explain to Sara Dotson that you'd had a severe head injury?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how far you got in that sentence. You attempted to.
I wasn't able to complete any sentences.
No.
Did I attempt to explain to Sara Dotson how your short-term memory was impaired
Yes.
and how you had...
remember her response to that.
And how you had been unable to remember what the judge had said even 5 minutes earlier.
I don't recall whether you mentioned that particular episode, but you definitely explained about short-term memory loss.
And that you needed accommodation.
Yes.
Because you were pro se.
Mm-hmm.
Did Sara Dotson tell me that that accommodation wouldn't be necessary?
Yes. She told you that she was not going to ask me to remember anything.
At some point, did you conclude or become aware that Sara Dotson was going to continue to refuse to my request and explanation to be allowed to accommodate you?
Yeah.
When you became aware of that, did you, at that point, speak up for yourself?
I don't believe so, no.
Did you ever inform during this exchange, Sara Dotson, that you wanted myself, Mr. Smith, with you?
Yes.
Okay. So you informed Ms. Dotson that you wanted or needed me to be with you?
Yes.
And did she reject that request?
Yes.
At that point, did I reach around in my pocket for something that I brought with me?
Yes.
I'm going to show you an audio recorder and ask you if you recognize it.
I could not swear that this is the same one. It looks similar.
Look like the same size? Do you have any reason to believe that this wasn't the same device?
No.
Okay. Do you remember my attempting to hand such a device to you?
Yes.
And invited you to use that
Yes.
to record the conversation,
Yes.
to accommodate you,
Yes. So
to aid your
remember what was said.
to aid your memory.
Uh-huh.
And Ms. Dotson had been informed that you needed accommodation because you had a disability.
Yes.
Did Ms. Dotson say she wasn't going to permit
Yes.
the conversation to be recorded?
Yes.
Did she tell you that she wasn't requiring you to remember anything?
Yes.
At that point, did I start to fumble around in my pocket or pouch for a small camera that I normally carry with me? Or do you recall?
I don't recall.
Okay. Was it about this time that Sara Dotson closed the door after ushering you through it?
I don't know if ushered is quite the right word. Kind of nudged me through.
Through the door.
And then pulled the door closed.
She pulled the door closed behind herself.
Yes.
I was not blocking the door?
No. She pulled the door closed behind herself as she exited into the lobby and shut the door with me in the office portion of the building.
At that point, you were no longer able to see or hear what was transpiring between Miss Dotson and myself?
Correct.
Because the door had been closed
Yes.
by Sara Dotson,
Yes.
who had pulled it to or closed behind her.
Yes. I was not certain whether I was allowed to open it. Does that make sense? I believed that I was required to speak to this woman as per Commissioner Thomas's instructions, and I was not sure whether I was allowed to exit once she had shut the door behind her.
So you waited there for a little while.
Yes.
Do you have an idea or an estimate how long you waited before Sara Dotson returned?
Felt like 10 minutes. It was probably only about 2 or less.
Okay, so it could have been less than 2 minutes.
Could have been.
You're not sure? You weren't looking at your watch?
No.
So, you had no external devices?
I had no clock.
At some point, she returned.
Yes.
And she opened the door again.
Yes.
And you were there when she opened the door again.
Yes.
Did it sound like there was any kind of electronic mechanism or anything that was causing the lock to open when she opened it?
I wasn't really paying attention to that.
So you couldn't tell whether it was a key or a security card or what mechanism she was using. But this was a heavy door.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you become aware that during your meeting with Sara Dotson that there were phones in this area available? Desk phones, office phones?
I suppose they were, but I don't recall even looking for that at the time.
Okay. You don't remember if Sara Dotson had a phone in her office?
I don't recall.
Okay. But you do recall that Sara Dotson chose to remain on the same side of the door with me.
Yeah.
And before she closed that door, were you looking at either of us?
Well, yeah, I was looking back and forth between the both of you before she closed the door.
Did Sara Dotson look angry or frightened?
She looked pissed.
Pissed. You mean angry?
Angry.
Okay. Is Sara Dotson a small woman?
Are you referring to height or overall size?
Overall size.
Overall size, I would say no.
Okay. So she's not a tiny woman.
No.
Does she strike you, or were your impressions, the impression you got was, did she seem to be a shy woman?
No.
Not even?
Not even.
Not even this much?
She seemed very self-confident and in control and used to being in control.
Okay. How'd the I'm now going to ask you some questions about which I have no direct knowledge. I'm going to refer to questions as best you recall them about the conversation that you had without any witnesses with Sara Dotson. Was it a long conversation?
I believe it lasted about 10 minutes, but I'm not sure.
Just a second.
I didn't have a clock.
Okay. What was the nature of the conversation?
She asked about your involvement.
She asked about me.
Yes.
And my involvement.
Yes.
With who or what?
Your involvement in this particular case, the emancipation case.
So Sara Dotson expressed a question and curiosity about how I was involved in this case.
Yes.
And do you remember what you told her?
Not exactly.
I see.
It would have been along the lines of, he's helping me with figuring out how to go about these legal, how to file the things I need to file and where.
Do you feel
How
that
to look up case numbers.
you're having any problems or difficulty remembering the details of this conversation that you had?
Yeah.
Would it have helped you if you'd had a tape recorder to remember what had been said?
Yes.
Do you feel that the questions that were asked were material to the overall direction that this case was taking? The surrounding circumstances, the res geste or circumstances.
I'm not sure how to answer that question. The questions that she asked me were not at all material to whether Christina was a good candidate for emancipation.
Didn't ask you about Christina
or her home life was, whether there was any issues there.
She didn't ask you about her home life or any issues in her home, home.
Her questions were centered on you, and the conversation was geared toward whether your involvement would be detrimental to my position of not wanting to allow the emancipation.
How did you respond to that? We're talking about Miss Dotson.
Yes.
Not Heather Reid.
No.
Okay.
I don't recall exactly what I said to her. It was, I informed her that I did need some help in understanding this procedure. And figuring out what to do about my daughter's petition for emancipation.
Did Miss Dotson ever say to you something to the effect of, well, we all want what's best for Christina, don't we?
Yes.
Did she made that statement?
Oh, yes.
Did she expand on that about what she meant by that?
No, she didn't.
So it was unclear to you whether what was best for your daughter, whether what you had in mind was the same thing that what perhaps Miss Dotson or anyone else involved had.
I don't know what exactly she thought was best for my daughter, and I don't know how she thought that she was more qualified than me to decide what was best for my daughter. She did not go into her reasoning on that.
Well, you're not part of the court system as far as determining what happens to children, whether they're removed from their homes or whether. But in fact, in this particular case, what was at issue, one of the factors that was at issue is whether your parental rights would be terminated.
Yes.
And you asked for help. Did you ask for an attorney?
Yes.
More than once?
Yes.
Did the court respond to that?
The court did not respond.
They ignored the request.
Yes.
And you asked more than once, on more than one occasion.
Yes.
And Miss Dotson had just gotten done denying you accommodation from the person that you had asked to be there.
Yes.
Amy, had anybody attempted to assist or help you in this case or accommodate you? And I'm not just talking about the filings, but also your computer, your printer, your scanner, how to use email. All of these things were assets that you had in your own, but you had problems or difficulty using effectively?
Yes.
More than any other person, who spent the most time trying to help you learn how to use those?
You spent hours trying to help.
Would it be fair to say dozens of hours?
Yes.
Long hours over the phone.
Long. But I know how to scan things now.
I'm sorry?
I know how to scan things now.
Yes, you did. How far did Sara Dotson press the question of what I had to do with this case?
I don't know how to answer that.
I'm sorry?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, just tell me the truth, and as best you can remember it.
Well,
What did she say?
What you mean by how far?
Well, you say she asked what my involvement.
She repeated the question several times.
She asked what my involvement was.
Yes.
Now, another official at that courthouse, when I was not in your company, asked you similar questions about me.
Similar and above and beyond.
Was the name of that official Heather Reid?
Yes.
And you brought, on that occasion, at a later date, your mother with you.
Yes.
To accommodate you.
Yes.
Because you know your mother.
Yes.
And you trusted her. And you knew me.
Mm-hmm.
You knew me for a long time.
A long time.
You trusted me.
Yes.
In fact, I watched you grow up with my daughter, didn't I?
Yes, I met you when I was 10 years old.
Did I ever mistreat you?
No.
At the time we were in the courthouse together on 9/27/11, do you believe that I wanted to protect you?
Yes.
And that I tried to do the best I could to do that?
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't lying in that courthouse hallway in a pool of blood.
Mm-hmm.
But you needed help. Because at one point you'd been hurt very badly.
Yes.
And you almost died.
Yeah.
That was in a car accident some years earlier.
Yes.
And in that accident, you had to be airlifted to the Harborview Trauma Center.
Yes.
You were in a coma for almost a week.
5 days.
You almost died. And then after that, you found out you'd sustained severe head injuries.
Yes.
In fact, even today, you have no memory of that accident or the period of time 2 weeks prior or 2 weeks after it, right?
Memory.
Is that what they call a transient amnesia?
I believe it's transient global amnesia.
Transient global amnesia.
I believe that's the term.
Well, where did you hear that term from?
It was in the paperwork.
And did you hear that from your doctor?
From the hospital.
Okay.
I may have heard it from my doctor at some point too.
So after the 5 days or so in the hospital in a coma, you went and were hospitalized where you had to undergo rehabilitation?
Yes.
Weeks of rehabilitation.
Yes.
They had to teach you how to walk again?
Yeah.
How to get dressed?
Yep.
How to eat without choking?
Yeah. I was closely watched for quite a while for that.
And there are remaining and permanent disabilities or impairments from this injury?
Yes.
Like your balance was affected?
My balance was affected. It's
Can you ride a bicycle today?
no. It is difficult to run. If I try to jump, I usually fall over. There is continued tinnitus in this ear.
Tinnitus, that means ringing in the ear?
Yes.
So you have difficulty hearing with that ear?
Yes.
So you can only really hear well with the other ear.
Correct.
And
The ringing drowns out all the other noises.
do you have some neuropathy in one leg?
Yes, it's always cold and numb.
You can't feel anything in that spot in your leg?
I can feel the sensation is reduced. It is not non-existent.
Amy, even the blow to your head was so hard it even detached part of one of your retinas?
Yes.
You had to have surgery for that?
No. No, it detached the retina. That damage is permanent. There's a permanent blind spot in this eye.
So you have a permanent blind spot in one eye.
Right.
Which eye?
This eye.
Is that the side that you got the blow from?
Yes.
That's on your right side?
Yes.
Okay.
The surgery had to do with when this cheekbone was cracked. If I have this correct medically, It might have been from this cheekbone being cracked, it might have been from the brain trauma, but there was a third nerve palsy, and contractions pulled the muscles, the suspensory ligaments that position the eye in the socket, pulled it out, down, and rotated. The surgery was to correct that.